capturing pieces of life in 1914. The Bern clock tower, a Russian port, the Czar's troops boarding a train. But none of them were important. For Ethel, her mother was all that mattered, and she hurried closer to get a better look. The picture had been taken before Ethel was born, back in Russia. Her mother looked so young as she stood in front of a slice of a shtetl and stared down the camera. Her doctor's coat was smeared dark, and her face was lined with dirt. She must have been working herself to the bone, but still there was an energy to her. It was conviction. Ethel knew it as a quality she saw in herself and in her granddaughter, a quality passed through the blood. How did Mama stand so tall while the world around her was shattering into war? And who was the man next to her? He wore a military greatcoat and a cap with the visor pulled down so low Ethel couldn't see his face. Instead of looking into the camera, the soldier looked at her mother. He was inclined toward her, drawn by gravity. Lena squeezed Ethel's hand and pointed to the opposite wall. Across from the image of Miriam hung a collection of more photographs. Academics posed in front of telescopes. One had a scale model of the solar system suspended behind him. These were all physicists arrayed in orbit around Albert Einstein. "Where's my Uncle Vanya's photograph?" Ethel asked. He should have had pride of place above Einstein. Vanya was the whole reason they were there. "I thought they'd found the journals, that this was about Uncle Vanya's work. Don't they know what he did?" Lena asked. "They do now." Ethel reached for Einstein's photograph and plucked it off the wall. It was easier to do than she'd imagined. An alarm blared. The curator and his assistants came running. "History needs a narrator," Ethel said. "Perhaps this museum chose the wrong one." Part 1. Tammuz. The Hebrew calendar is based on 3 astronomical phenomena: the rotation of the Earth on its axis, the revolution of the moon around the Earth, and the movement of the Earth around the sun. The 4th month in the Jewish calendar is Tammuz, from the Aramaic, meaning heat, fire, or sun. It is said that during Tammuz, in the midst of battle, Joshua ordered the sun to stand still. God heard his pleas, and the day stopped. Only the moon continued, sliding in front of the sun. Chapter 1. 1914. Kovno, Russia. On the 18th of Tammuz, Miri Abramov sat at the window in her room watching the slip of a moon emerge behind the mottled rooftops of Kovno. Her shoulders were slumped forward, and curls escaped from the braid running down her back. She was exhausted from tending to dozens of patients and couldn't stop thinking about one in particular, the fishmonger. She lit a cigarette, watched smoke finger the polished glass in front of her. He had been beaten so severely Miri didn't recognize him, and his was a face she knew. He brought her family his catch every Monday. The word Jew had been scrawled on his chest with so much hate that the charcoal used to write it cut his skin. The letters oozed red. His ribs were cracked, and Miri was sure his spleen was pierced. She needed to operate to save his life, but she wasn't a surgeon. She was still training, couldn't do anything without permission, and all the surgeons above her, men, disagreed with her diagnosis. They said he was only bruised, but she'd watched his condition deteriorate. She'd recorded his pulse rising, his blood pressure dropping, along with his increasing confusion, all signs he was bleeding internally. Would he make it through the night? The grandfather clock downstairs struck the hour. It was time for supper. Miri stubbed her cigarette in a pile of ash on a cold saucer and made her way into the hall. Standing on thick woven carpet, Miri took a deep breath and arranged her face. Making an appearance downstairs in the crowded sitting room where she'd find her grandmother always made Miri feel as if she were on stage. The house, the paintings, the silks and velvets were props in Babushka's exquisite theater. Her grandmother was Kovno's most illustrious matchmaker, and she was paid in gifts. Everything her family had was chosen for them. The house was given by the owner of the brick factory on the night of his wedding. Beds were delivered by a carpenter once he held his